So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our participants from around the world. Thank you for coming onto the show. I'm Ramesh Ranjan, the co founder of Global HR Community, a platform that brings together the HR professionals, people managers, business leaders, corporate organizations, academic institutions, entrepreneurs, and students to enable the members to fulfill the purpose, pursue their passion, and optimize the potential in the journey called life through our guiding principles of connect, learn, and grow. The United Nations states that happiness is a fundamental human goal and calls for a balanced approach to economic growth and promotes the happiness and well being of all people. In today's fast paced world, happiness at the workplace has emerged as a cornerstone of employee well being and organization success. Recognizing the profound impact of happiness on productivity, engagement, and overall satisfaction, United Nations has made March the 10th as the International Happiness Day to recognize the importance of happiness in the lives of people around the world. The global HR community and Amazing Workplace, the employee happiness company, are proud to come together on this special day to strive to create a happy environment that fosters joy and fulfillment at the workplace. We have with us Sean Holyfield, the CEO of Amazing Workplace, Shrikant Arimanithaya, the entrepreneur in residence of the Machane Group, and also the co-founder of the Global HR Community on this show. And we welcome you, Sean and Shrikant, and thank you for having agreed to be on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thanks, Sean.
We spend around 75% of our waking hours at work. It is said our happiness in life depends largely on the happiness at the workplace. The American Psychology Association defines happiness as an emotion of joy, satisfaction, and well being. In today's organizational context, the concept of happiness in the workplace has transitioned from a nice to have to a fundamental requirement for a productive and engaging workforce. Organizations have begun to realize that true wellness extends beyond physical health and encompasses the emotional and mental well being of their employees. Happiness at work is not just about a feel good moment. Sean, I would like to start with you and have your perspective. What do you think happiness is? And are organizations moving away from wellness to happiness at the workplace?
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen to just get into answering that question, if that's okay.
That's
so
okay.
Let me share my screen.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's start with happiness. Are you able to see my screen here?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So happiness explained, the origin of the word happiness comes from the 1100s, which we'll get into a little bit of history on that. But at a high level, happiness is simply defined as a feeling of enjoyment or pleasure. As we did our research as to how we effectively measure happiness, three criteria really stood out or jumped out at us. One is the presence of positive experiences, emotions, the absence or presence of negative experiences and emotions, and then having what an individual feels like they need and want at work, which is really satisfaction. So the happiness idea and the idea of organizations moving from wellness to happiness is really born out of the activity that organizations have been chasing down for 30 years now. Are you able to see this graph here that was published by Gallup?
Yep.
Excellent. So the employee engagement problem has been an invisible but critical problem for many years. And as we can see just from the presentation of the results that Gallup has published, and Qualtrics has similar graphs that look pretty much the same. Despite a lot of energy and effort and enthusiasm being poured into improving employee engagement and improving well-being, there hasn't really been a material increase in engagement globally, using the metrics and using the technologies that have been put into place to measure engagement. And it really comes down to the differences between what employees really want, which is to experience happiness in life and in work, versus satisfaction, versus what employee engagement measures. And they're not the same. Happiness was created in the 1100s, nearly 300 years before the word satisfaction even existed. And it really means at its core and its origin, feeling very glad. And we all know it. We all know how we feel when we feel happy, right? It's a very unique thing, which is why it's important to find a way to measure that based on the employee's individual feeling. Satisfaction is simply translated as to do enough or to give enough. And then employee engagement, though it was loosely based on the works that were written by William Kahn in 1990, there are individual definitions for every company that measures employee engagement globally. And every one of them has their own metrics, their own scoring system, their own definitions, their own words, their different questions that they use to measure it. So it's no wonder that it's been inconsistent in terms of the outcome.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting comparison of what happiness, satisfaction, and engagement is. Thank you, Sean. Continuing from where you left about the Gallup survey, as you rightly said, the latest survey indicates that only 33% of the workforce are actively engaged, which means almost two-thirds of the workforce are either not actively engaged or even disengaged. And according to Gallup, this can almost result to a productivity loss of almost $1.9 trillion nationally, and this is restricted only to the US markets. So the evolution from wellness to happiness is rooted in the understanding that when employees are happy, they are more productive, they are more creative, and they are resilient. The ripple effect is profound. Happy employees lead to delighted customers, which in turn drives business outcomes. Three, in your 3 decades of experience, how important is happiness in the workplace, and how do you think it impacts employee engagement and productivity?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ramesh. First of all, Sean, thanks for joining this call, as well as Richard from Amazing Workplace we call AWP. Along with my colleague Ramesh, I'm super excited to be partner for AWP in Asia, Pacific region, Middle East, Africa, and Japan. And in the last several weeks, I had an opportunity to talk to many customers in this region about the opportunity what we have with the AWP platform. And it's amazing, really amazing. So people are very excited to be part of this great platform, and the service and products it offers. People are looking forward. So I'm very proud to be your partner in this region to take this platform and implement and make many organizations an amazing workplace to be in, as also drive happiness among employee community. So with that context, Ranjan, absolutely, happiness is one of the indication many organizations are today looking. And if you really look at the future of work, the happiness is going to be more important than ever before. And all of us learned during COVID and post-COVID, what makes an best place to work is the environment it creates for employees to be happy. So no doubt about it, it's going to be one of the biggest focus area. I'm in Delhi today. I met a customer talking about engagement, satisfaction, and happiness. And the customer said, absolutely, I get it. Now, how do we take it forward? So if you really look at Sean covered already, the engagement surveys have gone through last 3 decades. But engagement surveys doesn't capture what it takes to drive innovation, productivity, customer satisfaction, and growth and transformation for organization. What is required is satisfaction, and beyond satisfaction is the happiness. If I listen to Sean and put the four layers or hierarchy of engagement to advocacy, I think happy employees are loyal, happy employees are ready to advocate the place which they are working as a best place to work or amazing place to work for their fellow colleagues. So happiness derives from four areas. One is definitely the biological, an individual how he or she nurture the biological system, because the brain drives a lot of happiness for employees. So you need to really ensure that you have a sound brain and a sound body. The second one is definitely, I've seen how do we really drive psychological happiness. The psychological happiness comes from the colleagues you work for, the organization environment, which creates psychological pressure for employees to work, and the teams, the community, and a lot of things what we have around. The third one is the social. Again, the organization is a social animal or a social ecosystem. How organization provide a network, how it connects people to work together, how it builds team to work together is very, very important. Last one is what we call it as spiritual. Spiritual is not religion. Spiritual is not yoga. Spiritual is how do you really drive a purposeful organization? How do you really drive purposeful leaders? How do you really drive purposeful employees in an organization? So if you connect all these components together, when I closely examined Amazing Workplace and the happiness employee engagement system, what we have around really addresses many of the things like purposeful life or purposeful leadership, then the culture of the organization, the meaning what you derive from the work, and many such components are very much important to drive employee happiness. And happy employees are more innovative. Happy employees are more productive. Happy employees create happy customers. So the chemistry of enthusiasm or chemistry of happiness between customers and employees, I have seen it, how it drives business growth as well as employee health and wellness. So your fundamental question, Ramesh, absolutely the employee wellness, and especially how employee wellness derives in an organization, single metric is the happiness. That's what organizations are looking for. And one of the lessons I learned in my life is not that successful people are happy and happy people are successful. So if you want to create a successful organization, successful business model, we need to ensure that we have happy employees. And the last one, from my experience, I have learned it is very, very important to really celebrate small, small moments to drive happiness in an organization. We need not do 5 years planning or 8 years planning to become happy. We need to create wonderful moments in everyday life to be happy. That's what Amazing Workplace also believe in it. That's what I really like it. How do you really ensure that we drive happy moments across the employee life cycle? And how do you really capture these moments and reinforce it and ensure that employee create happiness in these moments? So that's what the beauty of the system.
Thank you, Shri. And I think it was a very nice framework where you shared the four dimensions of happiness and sharing how Amazing Workplace is able to help us in this particular regard. Which leads us to the next question, Sean. You have developed the first ever employee happiness management system. And we are very excited to know what this employee happiness management system is. What can you talk a little bit more about that, Sean?
Sure. I'm also going to share my screen just to provide some context or visual assistance, if that's okay. Um, let's see. Okay. So the system that we've created is designed to accurately capture how employees feel. And as you all might imagine, it's not light lifting to solve this technologically. If we had the time, we could all walk around and spend an hour or so with each individual employee, sit down, maybe have a tea, find out how things are going, listen, look at the visual cues, spend time with them, and we could accurately capture how people are doing if we create a safe environment to have that conversation. So how do we apply technology in a way that's going to give organizations meaningful information, understandable results that don't require a team of data scientists to interpret? So top right is an example of the engagement scores that exist on platforms today, just as a reference point. And it's worth noting that the systems that exist today they're really well designed. There's a lot of in-depth information. As long as you understand how the system works, you understand what their numbering means, whether it's a 0 to 6 scale, 0 to 100 scale, 0 to 10 scale, 0 to 100% scale. They all have their own scales. But as long as you understand those things, there's a lot of meaningful information that can be pulled out of them. So I'm in no way disparaging other systems that exist in the market. They've built really good software, and I've used a lot of these systems over the years. We wanted to go a different direction. We wanted to have a system that was more conversational or human in nature, meaning that if we were to sit down together, log into the platform, and the simple question is, how are we doing? There's a screen that simply presents overall, this is how employees feel, without any ambiguity or any interpretation. Results that come in from our surveys are next day, and it's very easy to see how employees feel overall when you arrive at that screen. Does that make sense?
Yep. So very
From there,
interesting.
yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, please ask.
No. You said the system makes you feel very human. So can you just tell us a little more about how that works?
Yes, actually, I'm going to jump ahead a slide and come to this slide here. The entire process is designed to really center around the most important group that we're focusing on, which is our people. We know from studies from Oxford, I think Oxford did a study in 2023 where they identified a nearly 15% increase in the productivity of employees that independently said that they were happy. So these are more tasks done, not necessarily profitability or financial outcome, but that study was done in conjunction with British Telecom. So we know that there's a lot of positive outcomes from happy employees, and those have been discussed. But the employees themselves have historically been the experience has been kind of what we see at the top right. It's a lot of bubbles and dots. It's typically what's referred to as the Likert scale, which is a 5-option scale of strongly agree, or strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. Sometimes there's a slightly in there on some of those values. We really wanted to turn that on its side, and we wanted to develop a survey technology that employees looked forward to, that was fun, that was interactive, and took care of some of the shortcomings that we had heard from companies that we'd worked with. One of which is that employees wanted to better contextually understand why they were being asked the questions that were being asked, which is why our surveys have a left side menu, which indicates topics or things. And every one of those topics is introduced before an employee then answers questions about that survey. I'm sorry, was there a question?
Yeah. You were continuing the. I interrupted you. You can just go ahead, Sean. Yeah.
Perfect. So the experience is very different for the employees. We've removed neutral answers. That middle answer of neutral or neither agree nor disagree, based on studies that have been done by SurveyMonkey and other large providers of surveys, up to 20% of employees will park right there, which means that the results that we receive are not as accurate as they could be if we remove that middle answer. In addition to that, we've created a validation system that once the employee goes through the survey, that's kind of this top right bucket. So they go through the survey experience. It's visually more fun. The questions are easy to understand because they've been contextualized. They're feeling questions that they answer. And we've developed our own feeling scale, which is proprietary to AWP. They then arrive at a screen in step 2 before the survey ends that presents a calculated happiness feeling. So using proprietary technologies behind the scenes, it's not as simple as the questions that they ask and answer. It's looking at a lot of factors. But what it does is it presents to that employee that based on the answers to the survey and all the other behind the scenes stuff, it sounds like you often feel satisfied at work. And at this moment, the employee can either validate and say, yes, that's right, or they say, no, that's not how I feel. And in step 3, they get to change based on actually how they feel overall. And then we capture why, which is also a really critically important part of the process. By doing that, we are able to present results which are significantly more accurate. We see that up to 40% of employees shift how they feel overall about a subject that's being measured. So this validation system is able to be used or turned off or turned on within any survey we have within our platform. So the example we're seeing here is a happiness survey, it's an overall organizational health survey, and that's why it's presented as it is. But if it was a benefit survey, for example, at the tail end of the benefit survey, we would see the same outcome where we see overall how employees feel about benefits. At the tail end, it would present to them this validation screen they can choose. And then we see the percentage of employees that have changed their answers, that have gone up, gone down, how many have stayed the same. So if we pause the movie for a moment, we think about this, it means that if we were to ask the same questions using another survey platform, those results could be up to 30 to 40% inaccurate because we didn't make the time to validate how employees feel separate and apart from the questions that are being asked. There's a lot of reasons for that. It could be that the questions that we asked were questions that didn't particularly matter to the employee and they're actually really happy about something that wasn't there, or they're really unhappy about something that was there. Or what we see oftentimes is that the employees that really care about an organization and are actually really happy about an organization, they tend to be pretty brutal in their feedback, which means that they're answering very honestly and very candidly about the questions that are being asked, and they're pointing out the things that they feel need to be changed. And based on those answers, it would appear on paper, using just the numeric scores by other systems, that this is not a happy employee, when in fact, they're actually very happy, or they're happy. They just wanted to be brutally honest in that feedback. So it's a very different way to capture information and present it.
Very interesting, Sean. As you rightly said, sometimes numbers don't tell you the full story and probably only see the tip of the iceberg. And sometimes you may have to go down below to really dig deep to understand more about the numbers. And I'm so happy that you have a system to validate some of your findings. And as you rightly said, you're sometimes 30 or 40% more accurate than any other surveys or organization. That leads me to the next point, Sean, because it is said that happiness and well being are subjective experiences, making them challenging to measure objectively. Happiness is said to be dynamic and at times very elusive. I'm a student of analytics and I strongly believe that what cannot be measured cannot be managed. So, Sean, I understand that finally and for the first time, businesses can accurately measure employee happiness, and which in turn helps you to strengthen recruiting, increase productivity, and reduce turnover. So, how do you measure and improve employee happiness, Sean?
We measure it, yes, we measure it through the system that I just described in terms of the surveys that we send out and gathering that information. We make sure that we're validating how employees feel. There's a lot of literature and research on employee happiness. If we go back in time, just a quick side anecdote. If we go back in time when we look at the origins of surveys, which in the US, at least from our history, started in and around just after World War II. And the purpose of those surveys was to measure whether an individual that we were looking to hire was going to be a good fit. As we came forward through time and research was done, jobs, needs, and wants analysis, or what's referred to as job burnout research, was done. And that was really focused on satisfaction. And we saw a huge increase in the number of satisfaction surveys that were used, at least worldwide, in the 50s, 60s, 70s as you came forward. 90s came, William Kahn wrote about personal engagement. That became a whole new version of employee engagement. But it was right there at that moment that we, as a group of survey companies, it was at that moment that we leveraged the job needs analysis, job burnout research, to convert it into an employee engagement survey. There wasn't new research done. Now, since then, there's been a lot of research done on wellness, happiness, how to measure it, how to define it. And we've leveraged the research that's been done by a lot of brilliant psychologists to identify those three buckets that really make up measuring happiness: the presence of positive experiences, the absence of negative experiences, and also whether or not employees feel satisfied, because that is still an important component. If individual employees don't have what they need or want, that can lead to not pleasurable experiences and or unpleasurable experiences, right? If you don't have the tools and resources, if your physical workspace isn't safe, there's a lot of needs and wants, basic needs and wants that need to be satisfied. But so by measuring those three, we're able to accurately approximate how an employee feels, meaning that we can ask questions about the presence of positive, we can ask questions about the absence of negative, and we can ask questions about the needs and wants. But just because we've asked those questions and we've gotten answers doesn't always mean that that employee actually feels happy or unhappy or satisfied or unsatisfied. And that was one of the key breakthroughs in the research that we found, is that candidly the only way to know whether someone feels happy is separate and apart from all the things that we're using to measure happiness. We give them an opportunity to independently share with us how they feel. And that's that unique technology that I described, where at the tail end, they're able to look at all the results. They're able to know what they're about to communicate to the workplace. And they're given an opportunity to say, no, I'm actually not happy. Or, you know what, I'm actually happy. And that's how we measure employee happiness in a very unique way.
Very interesting. And finally, we have a system in which we can scientifically measure the employee happiness. Going to the next question, Sri, you are partnered with the Amazing Workplace to bring the Amazing Workplace to this part of the world, Asia Pacific, as you rightly said, and then the Middle East and Africa. So, can you tell us what are the plans for AWP to service the customers in this part of the world, and what are some of the offers that you're bringing to the Asia Pacific region?
Absolutely. So as I
And
mentioned,
Sean can always butt in, and Sean can also add to that.
absolutely. So I'm very excited when I spoke to Sean a couple of months back, along with Richard, the Amazing Workplace as a platform, the philosophy, the methodology, and the focus area. And I was so delighted because in my 30 years working across various sectors, right from automobile, FMCG, software, IT services, and professional services firms, I always focused on employee engagement, satisfaction, as well as the concept like net promoter score and everything. But I never seen such a robust scientific methodology enabled by a digital platform, which Sean has built it. So I was very excited to take this platform to the countries which we agreed to support, predominantly in India as well as Middle East and other part. And what is the plan for us? Before that, I would like to explain why we see as a great opportunity. If you really look at many organizations across the globe have global capability centers in India, and we call it as GCCs. And this global capability centers, whether it's US-based organizations or Europe-based organization or other Asia Pacific region organization, are setting up their centers in India. And these centers are growing exponentially, and it will grow in the next few years. So we have a huge market to address in India, especially. The second one, from my own experience working for this global capability centers, they want India to innovate the next generation talent practices, or India to validate any innovations happening in the human resources function first, because of the culture, because of the scale, because of the complexities. That's the best place to first test it. So we have a great opportunity to bring Amazing Workplace into GCCs in India and ask them to test and implement it and take the success stories and implement across the globe. That's the second reason. The third one, if you really look at India and other emerging countries, the war for talent is one of the biggest concerns all of us need to address. And of course, now it's a little recession, the things will pick up. I can see the signals of coming back aggressively. People started hiring, the challenge of retaining, and the challenge of driving innovation, productivity, and customer satisfaction going to be one of the biggest challenge of many CEOs, whether it's global capability centers or India-based multinational organization, or India is hosting a lot of startup ecosystems. It's going to be the biggest challenge. So in order to address the challenge of attracting, engaging, retaining, and driving employee productivity and innovation and customer intimacy and satisfaction is so important for the organizations. I think Amazing Workplace platform gives us a phenomenal opportunity from functionality. Although we today discussed a lot of attributes of happiness and how happiness can be driven in an organization, what kind of management systems and technology available, Sean has beautifully explained. But apart from this, the AWP have a lot of other functionality. Like, for example, if you want to know the candidate experience in hiring and onboarding, we can do a survey. And if you want to know the culture of an organization, and we have amazing workplace platform offers you a culture survey. And if you want to do leadership 360, now we are talking to a very big organization in India, and we showcased the 360-degree leadership feedback functions of Amazing Workplace platform. And it's absolutely amazing. I've gone through it, have done a lot of 360, like our friend Richard in the call, with many of the headhunting firms like Conferry, where Richard come from, or Egon Center, or Heidrick and Struggle. But I never seen such a robust platform and dimensions on 360-degree leadership feedback and further development. So the AWP offers a, a comprehensive measurement system across employee life cycle, apart from happiness survey, what we discussed today, or culture, or leadership 360. And I also had a chance to speak to some of the private equity firms, as well as some of the organizations who are focusing on transforming distressed assets in India. And everybody want a robust platform in terms of mergers and acquisition, divestitures in terms of certain context, and more important, how do I transform the culture? How do I transform the employee experience, whether it's onboarding or offboarding or across the life cycle? So AWP is an amazing platform. And the last one, the ease of use. India and most of the emerging markets, the velocity of change is unbelievable, isn't it? So
Right.
we want every quarter the change happens and with high velocity. So we can't afford you do survey in Q1 and publish the results in Q2 and do transformation Q3. It doesn't work. And we have to show a lot of transformation quarter by quarter. So the platform what AWP provides is high velocity. You can do survey today morning and tomorrow morning or tomorrow night, you can get the results. And day after tomorrow, you can start working on implementation of certain areas of concern or celebrate certain strength area. So the velocity in which the transformation need to occur require a platform like AWP. So I can keep going, Ramesh, interest of time. I see this partnership is going to be very important for Indian market. And we spoke about the global HR community platform, which Ramesh, you are leading. Soon we'll announce Visara Human Capital Services, where we are going to work with many organizations on their transformation and growth. So many of these organizations already expressed the need to have an employee listening platform across the life cycle and the transformation. I'm so excited to work with Sean and Richard and David and Charlie, who has been amazing over the last several weeks in terms of their passion. They
And
want
if I can say, Sri, just one word, and namaste to everyone who's on the call. Today is, thank you, Ramesh, International World Happiness Day. Sean, as the CEO, I, as Chief Growth Officer, Charlie, and everyone out in the organization will not rest until every day becomes International Happiness Day, and that is our challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So there are a couple questions in the chat. Do we have time to answer those? Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
yes, John. It's part of our. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So the first question I see here, and hopefully I didn't miss one from earlier, but the first question I see here is, these aspects being essential to success and outcomes. Why are boards not as focused as they need to be on this topic? The honest answer, in having sat on several boards of directors, is they don't know. That's the honest answer. What we don't know, right? So Most boards of directors have been told for years that employee engagement is what we should be focused on. And there's a growing body of research. I mean, this is from two professors, Sachs and Grumman, who did a very deep dive. And there's a lot of research that we've spent time on over the last half a decade. But they don't know that, in short, employee well-being and happiness was ignored as the method to measure employee engagement, and that they use the job demands and resources model to generate questions and to design and send out surveys. They've just been told this is what we need to do. So the honest answer on that one is they just don't know. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone on the call. Then there was a question about what advantage does Amazing Workplace AWP certified? Okay, great. Yeah, that's a great question. So as it comes to recruiting, as we know, as individual applicants are looking to apply for a job, they want to have some guarantee or a sense that they're gonna be happy in this new role. I've never met anybody that was excited to take a new job who then came to me and said, Sean, I feel like I'm really going to be engaged working at this company. All of my friends have said to me, I'm really excited because I feel like this is going to be a great opportunity. I'm really going to be happy working here. So what they're thinking about is how they feel about the happiness. So when they read about employees that feel happy working at an organization, it increases their confidence that they will experience the same outcome. So a lot of the organizations that work with us, when we gather the results from the system, employees have an opportunity to allow the workplace to use their anonymous comments for their careers page or for other areas. And a lot of the organizations we work with, as long as the employee checks that box and allows them to do so, they'll grab the comments from the surveys and they'll post them on their careers page. We have a number of organizations in the U.S. who have seen. I only reference that because the law firms here locally, especially difficult to attract talent, and their heads of recruiting have expressed that it has been instrumental in their success in winning talent when there's a competitive situation where they're looking at one firm versus another firm. They see the reviews from employees that are AWP certified as happy. There are none of those reviews from another firm. They'd rather go someplace where they see that people are happy.
Right. So very interesting, Sri and Sean, when you shared what AWP has to offer. I initially thought it was more a happiness company, but then it's very interesting to see that in addition to happiness, you're also helping in terms of trying to understand the culture, the leadership through the 360. And of course, most importantly, as Sri said, in real time, you're able to provide the feedback to the organization. And I liked what Sri tried to summarize, saying that it's more a listening company than a listening tool, a listening system. And of course, Richard, when you said that you will not rest till every day is a happy day. And I think that's a great, noble initiative and a cause from your side. Are there any other questions anybody on the call has got before we can wrap it up and close it? Is there any other call? Somebody is saying Sri, yes.
No, I think Andy, thanks for joining. And Andy Goodman, also one of the advisors of Global HR community. And Andy has done a lot of work in Asia, especially India. And thanks, Andy, for joining, and your advice and counsel will greatly help us. I think Shiva asking some question. What is that?
Can we plug EHS manager performance metrics?
Yeah. Sean, you want to take that? For example, can we, answer is yes. We can look at a manager level, a functional level, or a geography level. We can slice and dice the data, even at the individual level, for example. But depending on the country laws and organizations, sometimes they don't want to publish at an individual level or don't give the data at individual. But definitely we can aggregate at a manager level, team level, functional, or geography level. Sean,
for sure. I mean, I'll just pull up a quick example here. Depending on the country, because every country's got specific rules as to what we can or cannot break out, for example, we can break the information down to, you name it. So whether it's looking at individual length of employment or working at what people are in office, out office, age ranges, and the results are very dynamic and easy to see. As we get into the questions that were asked, the responses, this is a bit of a deep dive there. We also can compare and contrast locations and groups if we wanted to see how one group is doing relative to another. Here's an example of that where we can instantly compare results by, these are made up departments. This is made up information for presentation purposes. So the departments have numbers, right? But each one of these left side values could be a location or it could be a department. I'll give an example of that. I could pull up length of employment and unselect department. And here we go. Now I'm able to see instantly by length of employment how employees feel about balance, growth, empowerment, meaning. Again, these are the things that are measured by this particular survey, but if it were a different survey, there would be different values here. Safety, belonging. We can also do a deep dive as to how each group, age group, or I'm sorry, length of service group felt about individual questions that were asked. And these are all dynamically able to be accessed instantly. And it's completely scalable. And we can add custom questions and we can add custom topics. So there's a lot of flexibility in the system, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's what it's makes it so powerful, Sean. I've never seen an analytical capability we can slice and dice at a real time. It's absolutely fantastic. I think Richard had.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Sri. I grew up in the United Kingdom, and in the United Kingdom, I think it's same as the US, the word amazing is more superlative, a better word than the word great. I could be wrong. So what I would like to know from you in your many talks in the last few weeks with CEOs of major organizations in India, I mean, these are really, truly in the top 20 firms in the world. When you brought the AWP, Amazing Workplace Platform, and described it, you've been met with some very deep frustration from some of the CEOs in terms of the fact that they have signed on to Great Places to Work, which is a very good company, but they're very frustrated. How do you bridge the gap between what amazing is and what great is, and what is the difference between our platforms? Because we're a fairly new firm, but don't forget, as Clayton Christian said, Andy Goodman's friend, professor from Harvard, and the law of disruptive technologies, that I would rather be us than a firm that's been 20 years old and can't change. But how do you talk about Sean's vision and what is the difference, just in a very small sentence?
Absolutely. I think there are two perspectives. I've been talking after I left my last job, meeting many senior leaders, either the global capability centers or Indian firms. So everybody started getting a little frustrated. They say the growth story for me is very big. I have the customers, I have the funding, I have a lot of opportunity around me. What is holding me is the leadership and the culture and the talent related matters. And they're telling that is one help absolutely India required in terms of the growth, what we are expecting, right? Either from government or corporates. That growth is only possible if we transform the talent function, the leadership and culture of the firm. Otherwise, it's not possible. So that's a huge need for talent transformation using employee experience, happiness, or engagement, whatever you call it. So that is one thing it is expressed. The second one pointed questions on the other systems, whether it's Gallup or Great Place to Work, and all these things, more used as an event or of a marketing tool. But a lot of CEOs don't see this translating into the top line growth of the firm or the EBITDA growth of the firm or the valuation or not meeting their business goals. Everybody is very sound and clear. They want a better management system which understand the employee experience in a real-time basis and ability to monetize that through customer experience and performance of the organization, top line and bottom line. That is very loud and clear. So a few of them said, okay, my HR celebrate, it's a great place to work, but I don't see that impact, whether it's retention or hiring better quality people or people giving extraordinary efforts to drive the growth of the firm. I don't see innovation coming. I don't see the discretionary efforts coming, but people celebrate, I'm a great place to work. So that's the gap I feel Amazing Place can work. Apart from that superlative, a word we use it in a good, great, and amazing. Of course,
Yeah.
that like it. But more than that, what they love it is, I want to see the business result, correlation of a happy employee and happy customer, a correlation of happy employee bringing greater revenue, innovation, productivity, transformation. That's what the place want. That's the reason I'm so excited to work with you guys.
Yeah, we've had very similar experiences. I was on the phone with a Fortune 500 company this last week, and their chief human resources officer, she asked, like out of the gate, she said, "Hey, where are your benchmark results?" And I said, "Okay, well, we'll get to that." And then when we got to this screen and we went through the system, she stopped. I mean, she's in the middle of using another system right now, and she stopped. She goes, "So I don't need a translation to understand what my 71 means." I said, "No, you arrive at a screen, and when your CEO says, 'Hey, how are people doing?' you can say, 'Overall, they feel happy.' So I don't need to then take a 71 with a translation table to then explain whether the 71 is good or bad relative to companies that are in a similar geographic location, that have similar employee counts, similar industry. There's no translation needed. It's just as simple as, here's how our employees feel. And guess what? They validated those feelings. So there's no doubt or reservations in our minds about whether that's accurate or not." And she was thrilled. I mean, the light went on for her. She was like, "Okay, this is way better," because that is the most frustrating. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, but I think we've experienced similar things in the sense that organizations are looking for meaningful ways to quickly and accurately find out how things are going, and they don't want to have to spend a bunch of time and extra money in order to get those answers. They're already spending time and money on these platforms.
Hey,
Yes.
we have one more
Sorry.
question to take. Mina asked, and she worked decades in various organizations and banks. So, Mina, your question is, of course, happiness is a state of mind and includes aspect of long-term things like purpose. Absolutely. The amazing workplace model on happiness is basically focused on things like purpose I mentioned earlier. And I like the way amazing workplace look at purpose. It talks about, I'm clear about purpose of the organization, to how I understand and how I really embrace. So it's a different stages of this. So it's definitely address things like purpose, the meaningful work, the sense of belonging, which we talk about it, which this slides talk about belonging. How do I get a feeling that I belong to this organization belong to me? Absolutely, all these factors are being addressed in the design principles of happiness. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sean, you want to add
Yeah,
anything?
so
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I was just going to comment that we've done, I mean, like a lot of organizations have, we've done a lot of research on the most effective, the topics that matter most to employees or to those that are working. And they're on the left side here. Obviously, our job, working career is an important component part of what we're doing. Communication is critically important to happiness. Meaning is very, very important to individuals. Empowerment, growth, balance, rewards, which includes pay and benefits, safety, belonging, enjoyment, and then of course there's the validation for happiness. These topics that are explained and described here in our happiness or overall happiness survey, as I mentioned before, we can add to these or subtract, meaning that there's some organizations that would prefer to not have all of these listed, but they do comprehensively capture. They provide a really good picture, a crisp, detailed picture of how employees feel about topics that drive retention, towards topics that drive happiness, drive productivity.
Great. So to conclude, I would just like to say a few things like happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to deal with them. And I think platforms like AWP helps us in terms of how do we deal with issues at the workplace and drive employee happiness. Workplace happiness is essential for success, all of us are aware. But I think Walt Disney reminds us that according to him, happiness is a state of mind. It's just according to the way you look at things. There is also this long debate about do what you love or love what you do. But Steve Jobs very beautifully puts it, your work is going to fulfill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do the great work is to love what you do. And when you love what you do, you're most likely to be happy. Thank you, Sean and Sri and the team at Amazing Workplace for having come over and shared with us how we can make happiness as a key contributor to employees and to the organization's success. I would like to also thank all the participants for having joined us on this show. And all I can tell you is that we have many more such exciting topics in the coming weeks and look forward to being connected with all of you. Good day and wishing you all a happy day also. Thank you.
Thank you.